Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our 17th episode of Toast to Talk. It's been a long journey so far, and it was an exciting weekend that we had in Baku. I have a special place for Baku, but we'll get back to that sometime later in this conversation. But I want to welcome all our panelists today, a very colorful set of people uh, who have different fan bases, are in different time zones, all got together, united by our love for F1, a show by the fans for the fans. We're going to do a quick rundown of a post-race summary of the weekend that was. A lot of exciting things happened this weekend, off the field, on the field, off the track, on the track. I'm your host, Vivek Shah, and we're going to do a quick round of introductions of our panelists, and I'm going to ask them what is a key highlight from this racing weekend that they want to share. We'll probably start off with Swetha, who watched the entire race through commute on the Bangalore roads. Welcome aboard, Swetha.
Thank you. Nothing much for my intro. I'll just go directly to the race today. I was very sad about what happened with Ferrari, and not just the Ferrari team itself, but all the four Ferrari engines that went out. And I was hoping Leclerc would at least win this straight race, but no. And I'm kind of sad. I'm worried for Ferrari because with what happened in Monaco to what happened here, I feel that if they continue on this path, even for one or two more races, the championship gap is going to increase, and it's not going to work out for them well. So yeah, that was something sad. But then with Max and Perez, I was happy to see Max up there, but I was hoping Perez would have the pace. I was very surprised that he didn't, considering he's quite good at Baku. In the last few years. I thought that even you could see that when Max went ahead also around those 2 laps, Max was almost 3 seconds and 2 seconds ahead each lap. And then he was asked to pit. I was hoping the tire change would help Perez, but didn't help again. For once in Baku, I saw such big gaps between the drivers.
Mm-hmm.
And apart from that, I think I was happy with how it went for Vettel, Alonso. Vettel, even with his that slip up with over there at the corner, maybe he could have fought for the next position. I don't know, but still, overall, I was happy with what happened with Vettel and Alonso, and very happy for Gasly. At least this race, he was. After having a tough season, he was doing well. So I'll come to the other points as we talk. I'll pass the baton on.
Yeah. No, thanks for that. That was like a good summary of pretty much the most of the race. And as WTF mentioned, right, Max Verstappen has won most races where Leclerc has won pole. With that, Ameya, any additional highlights that you want to share from this weekend?
I'm audible. Is it just Vivek or my?
Yeah, you're audible now.
No. So when you talk about so when we talk about Baku, I think the first thing we talk about is a chaos in a good way, and not unlike many other street circuits. I love Baku. The race today, it was not as chaotic as we have been seeing in past couple of years, but a lot of things happening. Good days for veteran, if I say. Back position at the end of it, despite the slip as Swetha mentioned. So it was a good race for a midfield battle. I mean, unfortunately, it was not a day for Ferrari, and we could not see a proper fight, a proper Baku fight for podium today. It was a pretty front five after our second virtual safety car has been set. I don't think there was much to it. But yeah, it was a tough midfield battle all through, like P10 till Esteban Ocon. We had great fights on and off. So yeah, it was a entertaining race today.
Yeah, no, I think the midfield was a lot more interesting, especially after the Ferraris crashed out. The action sort of shifted there, and we did see a lot of movement there. Vignesh, what are your thoughts from the race?
Yeah, so for me, I would just say that, okay, for Baku, my entire thoughts for the entire weekend is that, okay, as usual, Baku had a delayed session, but due to no loose drain covers, fortunately, I missed the loose drain covers, of course. But yeah, it was a legend's resurgence. You could see the drivers coming out. Fantastic race for Vettel. Hamilton managing it well at P4 or having his backaches. And of course, after the team said, okay, they had solved porpoising came back with double front. And that's what I liked about Baku, the porpoising.
We'll discuss that in a bit because I think that's worth the conversation. But before that, Naren, who's hanging out with or stalking Mika Hakkinen to see if they can chill over beer and watch the race. Naren, tell us what are the perspectives from Finland?
Thank you. Thanks for the introduction. Today's race was, I'm just echoing thoughts of what the other people have already said. It was a fantastic race, and I'm just looking at what happened in the qualifying, this is what happened in the race. Many people have jumped up places, many people have jumped down places. So overall, it was a good race, and my thoughts go to all the Ferrari fans and the constructors at Ferrari, because if you see, not just Ferrari dropped out, any constructor that had a Ferrari engine also had dropped out. For example, Alfa Romeo of Joe Guanyu had issues, and the others at Haas also had issues. Then Kevin Magnussen dropped out because he also had issues. Yeah, so it was not a bad day. But then I also heard about what happened post race with the Ferrari. There was one conversation that was happening with Charles when nobody was there at the pit wall, and he said, I did not know what has happened because we did not change much of what was there in the previous circuit, and if there is no much change, there should not be much problems. So he said we'll have to discuss with the team in the factory and see what is the issue. That is something interesting to see. If there is no much changes, what would be the change? Probably as days come by, we'll get to know if there was really issue with the engine, or is it just a specific constructor that had the issue. So this is something that I look forward to in hearing from the future races and from the team as well. But yeah, overall 51 laps is a very small to see battles, and with no big constructors. Yeah, in the lead, it was good battle. That's my overall take.
Swetha, since you have been an open Ferrari fan, what do you have to say about this engine reliability issues that we are seeing? This is 1 year, we're suddenly seeing so many DNFs for Ferrari, and a lot of it is not the driver's fault.
Yeah, it saddens me a lot. But the thing is, I don't know if it is going to change. Like I said, if this carries on in 1 or 2 more races, the championship is going to go away. They are the only ones who are up there to fight with Red Bull, and I want that fight to be there because F1 is best when 2 teams are fighting, they're too close together. So if the reliability is not there, it's disheartening, and that kind of puts the other teams also at back foot. It was really good to see Magnussen and Bottas also doing well now because of the Ferrari engine problems. If they kind of go out every other race, then the midfield battle is also going to go for a toss. I really hope they come up with some sort of a solution for this. Some consistency, and even without it, I think I don't know if everyone feels this, but I personally feel Sainz had more fire last season than this season. So that, along with these kind of inconsistencies, I think is putting him also in a back foot. So let's see how it goes.
Yeah, I think it's more fire. Rather than more fire, I feel he's also under more pressure. Last year, he'd just come in, so there's no pressure. He's getting into the groove. This year, there's pressure to perform, and it kind of shows through the number of mistakes that are also happening.
Yes.
So that could be a factor. And I know Vignesh has chimed on this before. So we'll go to Vignesh, but I also have another follow-up question for you, Vignesh, is with Ferrari having all these issues, we wanted a three-way battle at the start of the year, which means it's opening the gap for Mercedes. While Red Bull is racing away, which actually opened up the gap for Mercedes, where we have Mr. Dependable, Russell, still performing well on the podium today for a change. So I want to talk about Mercedes performance also, and the whole thing about the porpoising and how Hamilton was one of the fittest drivers on the track. When he finished the race, it was a very awkward scene to see people having to help him out, and he felt very drained out compared to all the other drivers. The last race, everyone was drained out because of the heat and the pressures that the race circuit had. But today was a very different story.
Yeah. So first thing which I wanted to talk about Ferrari, Mercedes, and Red Bull three-way battle. I believe that since 2013 when Mercedes started winning, Ferrari was so focused on beating Mercedes that when they saw Mercedes was struggling, they said let's also struggle so that we can compete with Mercedes. That's the strategy going forward, I believe. So yeah, thank you Ferrari for having let Mercedes at least catch up to you guys. So good job on that. Secondly, for the issue of proposing, note that Baku is one of the longest, straightest tracks on the calendar. The last turn and the first turn is so long, and that's where the proposing causes. A straight line at a high speed and your aerodynamics, that's when the proposing is there. So compared to all the other circuits which never had such a long straight, now like I was just seeing McLaren's Lando driver view helmet camera, and you could see that they were just bouncing. And this has been a concern from many of the drivers, not only with Lewis Hamilton, but George Russell, Lando Norris have openly said that there would be a limit on proposing, after which it would become dangerous, not for the driver but also for the car. Now, one which we saw today was Lewis Hamilton's. It was also highlighted in Toto Wolff's statement, stating that it's an issue which their physios are also not able to handle it. So you understand that Mercedes chaining out the proposing out of their car is very important, not only for themselves to win the championship, but also so that their drivers survive the entire season. Who knows, with the rate at which the proposing is going, you might see Stoffel Vandoorne and Nick De Vries swap cars, and they are in F1, and you can see George Russell and Hamilton compete for them in Formula E, just to ensure that you balance the drivers' dynamics out. So
yeah, I mean, driver burnout is a serious issue.
I want to add something on this. I think everyone has knows and also has mentioned, even today in the post-race interview, Lando and Stoffel Vandoorne, both of them did mention, at least Lando did say that Mercedes has taken a call on getting more performance than, hiring the, floor height, which would reduce the porpoising. So I think it's a call that Mercedes has made, but at the cost of what? Like Vignesh said, I don't want F1 to have a spine hazard for the drivers, at the end of the day. So I think hopefully Mercedes will make some changes for this, because they are experiencing most porpoising, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Hamilton pretty much thought he was on a camel ride. But speaking of fighting, which Swetha mentioned earlier, there's an interesting conversation happening on the McLaren radios. Last week, we spoke about your number one driver, number two driver with each of the teams. We said Lando was number one, but today's race seemed to be very different from a team strategy standpoint. I want to hear your thoughts, specifically, Ameya.
I don't dispute that Lando's position, because he is there on a multiple year contract, and he is the future. If towards the end of the season, if there's one driver that's going to be replaced, it's going to be Daniel Ricciardo, without any debate about it. But yeah, when we talk about the context of this current race, I think it made sense, because you have to have some kind of loyalty among your teammates, because as they've already mentioned that we have to the Lando, which we have mentioned that he has stayed back to let you overcut the driver above. So it only makes sense, even if you're fighting on the last pole for a position. And I don't think the position of McLaren is going to change after this, because they're not fighting for podiums. They're not fighting for constructor championship right now. They're just fighting for P8 and P9. And the priority for McLaren to stay in that midfield battle is to get as many points. And they don't want uh, that to happen, which happened with Daniel Ricciardo and Max Verstappen when they were in Red Bull. So they just want to bring the points home, and I think it made sense. In debrief, it would be a less awkward debrief today. But yeah, I mean, it only makes sense, and I don't think it's going to change any dynamics. I still think that even though they denied Lando, Norris has established himself as a pretty clear number one, and it's going to stay, because his constructor championship in that also, I don't think a couple of points here and there would make any difference.
I mean, when you're fighting for P8, P9, that's true.
Yeah.
And I did have the sneaky feeling that even at the last moment, there was this weird chance that Lando might just overtake.
Yeah.
It
But he
was
did
more
hold his
like Bottas
position.
trying to, it was more like Bottas trying to get the fastest lap last year. He just wanted to show that I can, just that I'm not doing it.
Correct.
So yeah, it was. Yeah.
But if Ricardo retires, one thing I do want him to teach Lando is the shoey.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure
Yeah.
Lando's going to win a lot more.
Hopefully.
In the future.
Yeah.
But there's one team that we I was going to say there's one team we all haven't been speaking about, which is Red Bull. Like, yes, they've been winning, but there's dynamics playing out there also.
Yeah.
Technically, we see they do have a faster car than Ferrari. Qualifying is a very Ferrari thing, but on the race day, they're just not able to defend against Red Bull. And today was a very similar story. Naren, I want to hear your perspective on Red Bull's performance.
Yeah. So my take on this is that yes, Red Bull has a faster car, and also Ferrari has a faster car. The thing is that my perspective is that they are very good in tire management, and that is what is taking them further more places. Today, if probably Ferrari did not have the engine issue, they still would have been probably third or fourth, considering that there was a huge gap between P1, P2, and P3 at the end of the race. So I would say, yeah, technically Red Bull still has a faster car. It is like George Russell, who performs well on a Saturday and not performing well on a Sunday. But then it is a little different with him in Mercedes now, because he's performing really well compared to Hamilton. But yeah, there are some issues with respect to Ferrari as a team, because of the 7 races. Carlos Sainz had retired almost three races, so that is an issue in itself. So reliability, I say, is the issue. It can be both the reliability of the driver and the reliability of the constructor, which they need to focus on. So that, with respect to reliability, Red Bull has been very consistent over the past 6 races, and that's why they are winning.
Makes sense. Okay, we're almost 20 minutes into our conversation, and I want to end on a lighter note. With all the excitement and passion that we saw across the race and the teams, Baku is my favorite track from an aesthetic standpoint. Every time they pan out, those historical castles that come in, mixed with the modernity of the F1 cars that we have, it is a very picturesque track. And if there's one track that I would go to, no cost barred, it'd probably be Baku, and I'll be roaming around the track more than actually looking at the action that's happening on the track. I wanted to hear from each one of you, what are your favorite tracks from a design aesthetic perspective, or a track that you really want to visit, irrespective of the action on the track? We'll probably start off with Ameya.
Okay. Thanks for taking Baku from me. So yeah, I mean, when we are talking about the track layout, for me, it's a clear winner, which is a Silverstone. I just enjoy Silverstone when we are doing it on a rig or when we are just watching the race. Silverstone stands out. But when we're talking about the aesthetics of the track, I think Spa-Francorchamps is quite quite close to Baku. But yeah, I mean, Baku is Baku. I just every time there's a calendar, I just look forward to when we are racing in Baku. So yeah, these two are the races tracks for me.
I'm ready to share Baku with you. Next up, Vignesh.
So for me, in racing perspective, as Ameya said, I would go with Silverstone. But for hardcore racing, I would love to go with the Nürburgring, the extended layout, not the smaller one. Varne ki Lauda crash. For in terms of the aesthetic of the track, I would always go with two of my favorite tracks. One is Turkey, and second is Hockenheim Ring, again in Germany. So, considering Germans' love for cars and they build some great circuits, yeah, for me, both my favorites are in Germany.
I mean, all through my childhood, I've just heard, right? The Autobahns are like F1 tracks themselves. And that's why regular people go driving. So, Swetha, how about you?
So you've taken Baku. I would also, walk around the old town and see everything and, see the race if I was there in Baku. But because that is taken, I think I would go for another street circuit again for the way the city shows up. That is Singapore. I love the way the skyline shows up, in a lot of those shots. I have walked those streets. But even then, when I'm watching the race, even on screen, it's just lovely. I love the panned out shots, of the city and the skyline. So yeah, I mean, I was almost about to go for like a picturesque European track, but then I think I'm more of a city girl, so Singapore.
I really want to make best friends with people who work in those offices around the track in Singapore, because they have these special viewing events right from there. It'll be like a completely different experience watching it from there. So if
you can
are
really
a fan
see it
who's
from the
watching the
CBD
show
there.
and you actually work in one of those offices, please do call all of us. Will be really nice. But last but not the least, Naren is actually in Europe. Swetha, while you're planning to get there, Naren's already in Europe. So let's hear from him.
Okay, so aesthetically, there are two different perspectives of me, aesthetically and track wise, with respect to how well the track performs and the driver performs. So aesthetically, I would say there are two circuits which is aesthetically pleasing for me. One is Monza, the Italian Grand Prix, which is a very, very fast circuit, and you see it is like a hand. So that is a fast speed. That's a speed circuit that I really want. The next second is which is aesthetically pleasing is Spielberg in Austria, the Austrian Grand Prix. So these two, because if you see the Austrian Grand Prix field itself is as with the racetrack on it, and it looks pleasing. In terms of the track which explores different driver dimensions and the car dimension, I would go Suzuka, the Japanese Grand Prix, where you have a lot of turns and you have to lift off and accelerate, and that's a tricky with respect to other. This is a very tricky first sector where if you brake, someone overtakes you, but if you lift off carefully, you can defend your position. It's like that. So with respect to driver dimension, I would say I would go with Suzuka. So in my order, it will be Monza, closely followed by Austria and Suzuka.
It's an interesting one you brought up. Suzuka sort of went off my radar, but with Japan being part of the calendar, this year is been a trying year with respect to really pushing all our drivers to their limits. And more than the drivers, it's the cars that have broken down this year. So let's see how they survive through the rest of the season. With that, final thoughts from everyone before we wrap up and F1 moves to a completely different continent. I I don't know, Naren, if you're going to follow them and also head over to another continent, but let's do a quick round of final thoughts from everyone on what they're looking forward for the next race. We can start off with Vignesh this time.
Okay. So I truly believe that okay, the team solved the porpoising because I feel driver's health is more important than the race itself. So my go-to is better racing, like no breakdowns and complete 20 cars racing. Um, Less porpoising for driver's health, and finally some better judgment from the FI.
Yeah, that sounds like a plan. Hopefully they can stick to it. Naren, how about you?
Yeah, like Baku, the next race, which is in Canada, has a very, very long final sector. And if we have more purposing with the cars, I don't know, Hamilton will probably take the spine and then hold it over shoulder and come off. That would be the issue. But I'm considering that it is a little warmer these days in part of Canada where it is always cold. It's interesting to see how time management plays an important role in a condition, in a track, in a country where it is cold for most of the year and it's sunny for 1 or 2 months. So considering that, that would be my take. How drivers go ahead with better time management and how drivers on purposing, as Vignesh has already said. These two would be the key factors to look forward to in the next race.
Yeah, driver health seems to be a topic on top of everyone's mind. How about you, Ameya?
I mean, good couple of races upcoming. Like next Canada is a good race which allows wheel to wheel racing a lot. I'm looking forward to some circumstances that create that mixed strategies, because I just love when some cars are going with two stoppers, some are one stopper. So it keeps an question mark over which strategy is going to work out. So I always look forward to the races like that. When it comes to teams, I have mentioned it already a couple of times in this podcast that I just think that Alpine is not there yet. Like they always show that they have potential to be much better than what they are doing right now, but somehow they are just lacking on the Sunday. The midfield trains which Alpine has been creating in last 2-3 races has been phenomenal. I don't know what their elbows are made up of, but when they take it out, it seems like there's no space for anyone to pass. So I just want a close midfield battle, more wheel to wheel racing, and uh, hopefully uh, hopefully some wet races that allow the mixed strategies. So yeah, these three things for me.
Yep. I mean, they've added a lot of interest to the midfield, especially when we have had crashes and safety cars come in and then everyone's ganged up. You can actually see those trains. Last but not the least, Swetha, what are you looking forward to?
I am looking forward to Ferrari sitting together, putting their heads together, somehow making the engine better, and also coming up with good strategies, not bad ones like last race. And I want to see the more wheel-to-wheel racing in Canada and people to fix porpoising issues. And also, I am excited to see, I mean, if Alonso will get better, higher positions. Last two were against seventh. So like Ameya mentioned, I want to see Alpine do something to get higher there. So that's it.
Yeah, unpopular opinion, but I don't want Charles Leclerc to get pole position in the next race because I feel that he has a better chance of winning if he's not in pole position and he gets to it rather than defending it. With that, as always, a great conversation, different perspectives, fans from different colors coming together and objectively discussing the race. It's been a great time for me to hear that from all of you. And hopefully that's what our fans who are watching this show feel. Please put in your comments on whether you agree or disagree with what we have said. If you have any other ideas that you want us to be discussing about, you want to know what the specific reason behind the background I have, put all of that in the comments. Like, share, and subscribe this video because we would love to hear from all the F1 fans. Unite the ones in India specifically because this is an upcoming sport in India. As someone mentioned on the group prior to this, There are actually live screenings happening of F1 races, even when we have cricket going on. India and South Africa are playing, but there were pubs playing F1 screening, which shows that this a growing fan base, and hopefully we can be a voice for that. So once again, thank you to all our panelists from different time zones for taking your time out and sharing your thoughts. See you all in another continent next week. Canada, here we come. Thanks a lot, everyone.